Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Lundus Instructs Us audio podcast. I'm so happy to be hosting this. I'm your host, Lundus01. I'm sorry for that very awkward intro with that very awkward music. This is my first podcast ever, and I'm trying to sort out the kinks per se. So I welcome you all to our first ever episode. Again, I'm Lundus01, your host, and I'm looking forward to discussing a lot of things with you. The first of which is a quick recap of our nation in American Roleplay. I'd like to just give a brief recap of those of us who have been probably absent from American Roleplay or have no idea what I'm going to discuss tonight and are just wondering what the context is for it. American Roleplay was founded a few months ago and by developers in the old NUSA group that have decided to come over. And the first ever president of the United States was Bernard Caldwell, pretty much a household name in NUSA if you were in NUSA. Bernard Caldwell was, of course, various political positions in the old NUSA group, and, he was a respectable figure, and he still is today. With him as president, we saw almost 1,000 members join. We were pretty much at the same place NUSA was in its beginning, probably even further. And he was a great president, and we all loved him. We still support him today, even now he is in the House. But moving on from that, he resigned a few weeks ago, and in his place came his vice president, Bayan Filipino. And I cannot stress this enough, Bayan was a complete failure. If I had to give a sort of middle school, high school type grading system, A, B, C, D, E, or A, B, C, D, F, to every single president we've had so far, I'd say Bernard Caldwell, definitely either a minus B plus president, definitely a very strong, very good first president that we've had, and Bayan Filipino, a very, very strong F, D minus president. I cannot stress enough how bad of a president he is, how badly he handled the nation, and all of that has to do with his cabinet. All of it has to do with the way he presented himself. All of it has to do with his activity. I named this podcast Lundus Instructs Us because I want to instruct you on what's been going on in American Roleplay and how to handle it. In the absence of MSNBC, in the absence of CBS, we've been left with no major news broadcasts and only Twitter feeds, only tweets that are by unreliable sources that can't be trusted, such as Con News and Free News and such as that. And I would like to fill the void of media that we've been getting here with this podcast. And I think I will, even after MSNBC, of course, returns, I will be still continuing this podcast because I think it's important for everyone to understand and look and understand and be taught what is going on right now in American Roleplay. So just some general information on the podcast before we truly begin. I'm going to have this every other day, or every day for the moment, unless mentioned otherwise. You can join the Discord. I'll leave that in the biography of this video. And it'll be every day. All episodes will be live at 3 o'clock. I might even have twice a day. The schedule will be very, very varied. And in regards to content, in regards to organization, it'll just be me talking. It'll be me discussing what's going on. It'll be me asking you all to pay attention. It'll be me instructing you all on what's going on in American Roleplay. As far as guests, I will have many, many, many guests throughout the show. Although for this first episode, there will sadly not be any guests, but expect guests to come. Guests will be predetermined. I will just DM you. You can come on if you want. You don't have to. And I'll just ask you some basic questions, ask your opinion, and from there we'll talk more. Currently, I have an idea in my mind of who's going to come on, so that's exciting, a lot of which are predetermined public figures, and I hope that you enjoy that. So anyway, I named this episode 1, No Light at the End of the Tunnel, because we very much are in a tunnel of I suggest malice, or a tunnel of fallacy. a tunnel of not real and not reality. We are in a tunnel right now where we are a very successful American Roleplay group in which we have garnered so much support, almost 2,000 members in our short time as a nation. But in this tunnel, we're just emerging from all of this euphoria, but we see that there is no light at the end. And that all has to do with President AConArtist. So let me quickly give you a brief rundown of our history as a nation, just as what I was doing earlier. So I was at the part where Bayan Filipino took power, and I'll explain to you why you and I should keep criticizing Bayan Filipino. His cabinet picks, although they were in part, judged by Bernard Caldwell and enforced by Bernard Caldwell, his cabinet picks were horrible. And let me just start off with the two most hated, and I'm sure you know both of these names by now, Centaur Exelis and Lion Claw 33. I'll start with Centaur Exelis. This man went on to Los Angeles pretending to be George Floyd and sparking this whole controversy in American Roleplay. He acted like a buffoon. He pretended to be all these stereotypes of African Americans, and it's frankly disgusting what he tried to do. So I'm glad now that Bayan wised up, he removed him, and he is no longer in power. However, he only removed him after he was confronted on MSNBC by Parker Jackson and Michael Smith to remove Centaur Exelis, to which he said yes, because of course he did not want to lose the support of the American people coming so close to Election Day. Speaking of Election Day, Bayan Filipino, continuously being a failed president, he did some other horrible policies as well, I'd like to mention. He got us into a war with Ukraine. Of course, we did win, but I feel like it could have been very easily avoided. And, it's great to see that so many people were outspoken about Bayan Filipino. Another thing, Bayan's horrible crime control of Los Angeles. People like AConArtist, certified crime lords, ran rampant in Los Angeles. So many videos, so many pictures, so many images of him robbing banks, him shooting people, innocent civilians, and he all wrapped it around his Bacon Hair Foundation, which he used as sort of a reverse card, a shield, a Mario star, making him invincible from any criticism, as it was all in quote-unquote the favor of bacon hairs. The American people, of course, were not easily fooled by AConArtist, and of course he was almost put in jail. However, despite all of this, he ran a pretty successful campaign for president. And that gets us to the election we just had a few weeks ago for president, in which AConArtist won. Early on, it was pretty much determined that Armand Foley would win. He was in the lead with 40 votes, and, the polls showed very positively for Armand Foley, and very negatively for AConArtist, and even more negatively for President Bayan Filipino, not even garnering 3 votes on some polls. Look back into the Polls and Threads channel of American Roleplay main Discord. You'll see thousands of polls being held, none of which Bayan got even close. So with this in mind, Bayan made this excuse that he was hospitalized and could not campaign, so eventually dropped out of the race so he could be on the side of AConArtist. He merged campaigns with AConArtist, sort of. Of course, they didn't merge campaigns because the only thing that happened, none of his campaign staff was transferred. The only thing that got transferred was his vice president, Matrix OC. And, now with AConArtist having this full support of former President Bayan Filipino, with his supporters and Bayan's, it was still unlikely that he would win. At least it seemed this way, until a man by the name of Technozo came in and swooped down and just clawed up all of the independent voters, a lot of voters from Armand Foley, and a lot of voters from AConArtist, and a lot of voters from Bayan Filipino's campaign. He was the former president of NUSA and was on track to being the next president of AR. However, in the first presidential debate, he merged campaigns with AConArtist, and we can see now why William P. Nixon, Armand Foley's vice presidential candidate, was so critical and so outspoken about how he felt he was being defamed and how he was being criticized and how he's being unjustifiably, just shit on, we could say. And I did not agree with William P. Nixon in the beginning because I thought, this is not something that you should say at a debate. But after seeing, after rewatching the debate, I could see very clearly that Mitch Matrix and Technoza were working together to humiliate Armand Foley and William P. Nixon's campaign. And this is something that they succeeded at. They were working together from the beginning. Of course, at the end of the debate, they announced live on MSNBC that they'd be merging. And, of course, the race went back to a classic American two-way. Of course, both independent candidates running for president. In the beginning, of course, Armand Foley had the lead in the first days of the polling and the first days of election night. Of course, as the day went on, he slowly lost the lead, gaining it a few times throughout the night, but still slowly losing it. Of course, botting was a huge issue, of course, with AConArtist, a certified criminal, and the election was recounted over and over again, taking almost the full next day. So, in the end, it was determined that AConArtist won, and this was a surprise to many. The Congress kept adamant about recounting the votes, which I think would have been a good idea. However, this was not something that Acon wanted to happen, and we respected that. So, in the first few days of Acon's presidency, Acon made some horrible cabinet picks. He made some great cabinet picks. I don't want to completely defame the man. He made Carl Schultz a very, very prominent military figure in the United States. He was a great pick for cabinet. I'm glad that he's still here, and I'm glad he's not being impeached as Armand Foley wanted to happen. But I'm glad that Carl Schultz, and I think that you should too. I think that we should all support him because he is being slandered for no reason right now, and I think that he is a great pick. And of course, many politicians have went on to MSNBC and CBS saying that he is a great pick and that we should not be removing him. But of course, just like AConArtist, he's the embodiment of Harvey Dent. He's the embodiment of Two-Face. He is a double-edged sword. He has a great cabinet pick in Carl Schultz, but a horrible cabinet pick in Lion Claw. I just mentioned Lion Claw a few minutes ago of him being on Bayan Filipino's cabinet. And this man was horrible. He failed as press secretary. He failed to keep balance in a room full of angry people. He failed to take questions, even in the second press secretary meeting. He failed to take questions. He was a horrible pick. He was always outspoken. He always insulted many people in television. And, the fact that he was even on the cabinet in the first place was a big mistake. However, of being Acon, he had to make Lion Claw White House Chief of Staff. You heard that right. Lion Claw 33 is our nation's Chief of Staff. White House Chief of Staff. I want you all to form your own opinion on this, but I think that it's very clear to say that this was not the right choice and that many other choices could have been made. With that, AConArtist has done some good things. I don't want to completely defame him. He has stopped any sort of Russian aggression with us after nuking Los Angeles. All of that was caught live on camera in MSNBC. And he's been just a sort of C president. He's just been sitting in office up until his second State of the Union. And I went on MSNBC and kind of had a breakdown. I kind of went on a rant about how much I disliked AConArtist because of this State of the Union address. And I stand by that. I think that it was a failure. He failed to maintain the composure of the room. He spoke for 5 minutes. We were there waiting for 2 hours for him to speak only 5 minutes. And in his address, he mentioned nothing about the American people. It was a shit show. He should not have been, the one conducting this. I wish that there was more control, and I think that he realizes this, and the next time he will make a better case for himself. His first AConArtist has not had a first press briefing yet. However, I think that if this State of the Union was a sign of things to come, we should not be looking forward to this next press briefing. As a podcast station, I don't think I will be there answering questions because I'm not really a news outlet, but I do want to inform you on what's going on and to make your own opinions. So with all of this in mind, let me tell you my opinion, and let me tell you what I think that you should be thinking as well. I want you to form your own opinion, of course, but I think that you should be asking Acon to do better. I think that you should be asking him to stop appointing puppet regimes into the Senate, another thing I'm very critical of him about. I think that you should keep asking him to do better as president, to be more active as president, and to restore the faith in the Union. Because right now, even as, America's so divided, as there's this polarizing opposite group of the Federalists and Armand Foley and the Constitutionalists and AConArtist, he needs to step up. He needs to make the group a lot more active than it is right now. With that, I don't want to spoil everything that I have to talk about in the first episode, so I leave you now with just some thoughts, and I hope that you can take this all to light. I'll see you right back here, 3 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching our first episode. Thank you. God bless you. Good night.